Hello, this is Nadia from She Builds Again, and I am here for another episode. Today, we're actually going to be talking about how my health and mental health improved since moving to Bali. And so, if you don't know me, I was 35 years old when I moved with my family to Bali, Indonesia. That's my husband and our two kids, and we've been living here for the past 3.5 years. And so I have definitely experienced life on both sides, life in a Western society that is fast paced, where you're working all the time, where you are stressed out all the time, where you are literally living to work, versus where you are in a space where you are able to work less because it's a higher quality of life and lower cost of living. And so in this video, I'm going to be just sharing about some of the ways that my health and mental health have improved. And hopefully, if you are thinking about a move, if you are not happy where you are in your current environment, if you know that something needs to change, if you know that there's more to life, if you know that honestly, the cycle of waking up and sitting in traffic and going to work and sitting in a cubicle, then knocking off and picking up your kids and eating dinner and going to bed, if there is more to life, if there is more joy, fulfillment, peace, purpose, meaning to life than just that routine, then I'm here to tell you that there is another way of doing things that is less scripted and more sporadic and more fun and more adventure and more peace as well on the other end. And so that's what we've been doing for the last 3.5 years. We've been very intentional about trying to create better habits for our family, trying to utilize help as much as possible so that we can actually start to enjoy life more. And so I am going to share with you a few questions in this video that I'm going to go through, but also I just wanted to say, if you are from a country like we are, so we are from Bermuda, and it is very much driven by corporate careers such as reinsurance and international business and law and accounting and those kinds of corporate careers, that there are opportunities and there are ways that you can move your skill set to a remote career. And so that's exactly what me and my husband have been able to do. We both work online and work remotely. He works as a data analyst and I work in the communications and public relations sphere. So that's a little bit about our background and a little bit about what we do now. So I'm gonna dive in. So question number one, what did my mental and physical health look like before we moved? So it's actually raining outside. I wanted to record this video from outside by our pool because it was so sunny for a little while, but then it started raining while I had just pressed record. So I had to stop the video and do this again inside, which isn't as fun, but we continue. So in terms of what my physical and mental health looked like before we moved, I lived a very sedentary lifestyle. And I think that's down to a few things. I think obviously we know common sense that you are supposed to eat whole foods, you're supposed to eat fruits and vegetables, you are supposed to eat a high fiber, protein-rich diet with complex carbs. Like, we know this, but doing it in reality when you are busy, when you are stressed out, when you don't feel like you have the time, when you are so burnt out from everything else that you're doing with parenthood, work, life, that you just want to get home and lay down on the couch and just not think for a little while. You just want to zone out. You don't want to have to cook an elaborate meal or even think of the systems that are necessary to get organized. And that's for sure like the reality that we had back home. But we did thankfully have a routine where we were at least cooking dinner. Usually my husband would cook. He's actually the better cook of the two of us. I try to cook and people complain about my food, so I'm a little bit like nervous when it comes to cooking for sure. But my husband is the one that is really good with cooking. But unfortunately, the downside is, whereas I will cook things like soups or cauliflower or pumpkin curries with chickpeas, things like that, a lot of like plant-based things, my husband very much likes meats. He very much likes foods that are not typically healthy. And so like we had a lot of pasta, which is very carbs, which turns to sugar. We had a lot of like burgers and fries or things like that. And so that was like our lifestyle, to be honest. We ate a lot of pasta, a lot of pizza, a lot of very, yeah, almost no vegetables and no carbs in our meals back home. And so I think that's just the reality, is when you're just also eating because it tastes good, but not eating because it fuels your body in a different way. And so one of the things that I've definitely noticed since coming out here is that there's just a culture of exercise out here. One downside to being in Canggu where we are, and maybe most parts of Bali maybe, but definitely Canggu, is that there are not very many places that you can naturally walk. So I found that we drive everywhere. So we just hop on our scooter, even if it's 2 minutes down the road, you hop on your scooter, you go pick it up, you come back. Whereas before you would park maybe like 10 or 15 minutes away and walk. So that was one upside of our lifestyle back home. But in general, I lived a very sedentary lifestyle. I would, like I said, wake up, commute to work, go to work, sit at a desk in a cubicle, then you knock off of work, you pick up the kids, you come home, you eat dinner, you veg in front of the TV, you go to sleep, and then repeat for most of the week. I did not really have a lot of time or energy to exercise. Whereas since I've been out here, like I said, it's a culture where people, especially expats, it's just part of the lifestyle out here where you exercise. Like there's so many options for different gym memberships, and there's like a Pilates studio on every corner pretty much. And there are just wellness, health and wellness, and even biohacking. I've seen a lot of different places that have like recovery and ice bath and sauna and red light sauna, all of these things that are supposed to help with just living an overall healthy lifestyle. And so there's definitely more of an ecosystem here because everyone's doing it, and you want to look and feel your best when you are starting a new life in a different country. And so that's something that we've made, thankfully, more of a priority with since we moved out here. In the beginning, we were part of a members club, and so we would go to the gym, which was on the facilities there. That closed. So more so recently, I've been doing Pilates, and also it has helped with my core recovery since I've had 2 kids. And so that's been a really huge blessing and just such an awesome change because I can feel the difference in my body. Like I feel like my arms are more toned. I feel like my core is definitely stronger. Like I don't have a perfect body by any means, but I can see the progress, and that makes me excited for what's possible. And I think if I also can perfect the diet piece, because I still have some things that I need to work on and making sure I get more iron in my diet. If I can do better at that, I know I'm gonna just continue to see just my confidence increase, but also my body, how it looks and feels, is going to continue to get stronger and more flexible and able to age well. That's something that I'm really mindful of because I heard this statistic on a different YouTube channel and a different podcast episode that I was watching that basically especially for women, the body that you create in your between 35 and 40 is the one that you're going to take into your aging. And so that's not to say that you cannot at 50 decide to pick up some dumbbells and train, but it's just to say that it's so important at this age to make sure that you are investing in your health, making sure that you're investing in your body and taking care of your body so that you have the mobility and the flexibility and all of the things that you need so that you are aging healthily and aging well. Like I want to definitely be one of those people that can still move around, can still walk, can still travel, can still do things with my kids. And so hopefully that's the ecosystem that I'm creating because I'm now exercising a lot more regularly. And so since April of last year, I started with the Pilates, and I've been doing that for mostly 5 days a week, except I've noticed that since I came back from Bermuda for the holidays, it's probably been more like 3 times a week. And that's not because I don't want to do it 5 times a week. It's just because we've been sick, or we have kids that are sick, or our nanny is sick. Like everyone's just been sick on repeat since January for some strange reason. So that's something I've noticed. I haven't really been 5 times a week. I've been more like 3, maybe 4 at best, but 3. Yeah, I think the other things that you notice when you actually start to exercise is just that your mood improves. It feels really good. I exercise first thing in the morning. I drop my son off to school, and then I take that 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock time to go to my Pilates class. And it just feels good to do something for yourself first thing in the morning, because then I feel like you can live your life for the rest of the day knowing, okay, I got in my exercise, I got in some movement, and it felt really good for my body, and I feel stronger and healthier. And even like your posture improves. Like there's so many different things that it can help with. In terms of my mental health, that's a huge one. I feel like that could be its own little episode, but I feel like the quality of life that we had before was very limited in terms of, like, we didn't really do much. We didn't really get to do much things that were fun or that were for ourselves as individuals. And so it's been really helpful to have just a space to be intentional, to literally decide that after we made the move, we were going to be super deliberate with our choices, and we were going to start to create healthier habits for ourselves as a family. And that looks different in every single season. Like right now we have a 2-year-old, so life has been so busy. But I think the cool thing is, as she gets older, we see ourselves getting more freedom. We see ourselves having a little bit more time and flexibility to do things that we want to do as individuals, my husband and I. And so for him, it's football. He loves football. He loves his football buddies that he has met, and just being able to have the time for himself. Like he told me one time, he's like, football is like my therapy. And so he has that space. He usually trains like at least once a week, and sometimes he plays games on the weekends, but he's trying to train instead twice a week so that we can have the weekends as a family. And so that'll be a really good change as well. And which changes happened naturally because of the environment and lifestyle. And so, like I mentioned, Bali is just, I think, a place for healing. I think that people who come here, for the most part, and not all people, are trying to heal from something. They need a space, they need an ecosystem that allows them to really be intentional about figuring out what in them is broken, what in them is sad, what in them needs attention, and to really find different modalities for healing. And so there are so many options out there. Like I have friends who, there's so many different spiritual ways that you can heal, from Reiki or sound healing or meditation, yoga. It's all here, every single aspect of it. For me, it's looked like spending more time alone, especially before we had our daughter, spending that quiet time reading, really reflecting on what it is that I want. And some of the things that I've developed since coming out here that have been really beneficial is, obviously we have distance from some of our family back home and some of the relationships that maybe were not as healthy as we wanted them to be, or we now need them to be. But I've realized that because I moved out here, I started to become aware of my boundaries and started to actually vocalize them. Because before, I remember I was in a space where I was so afraid of confrontation. I was so obsessed with trying to be the good girl and fitting in and making people happy and being liked and all of these things. But it backfired because I wasn't liked. I was almost like the scapegoat of some of my relationships, it felt. And so to really be in a place where I can, for the first time in my life, I think it also comes with age and maybe a little bit of wisdom, but create boundaries for myself and actually tell people what those are and hold true to them, even if other people don't like them, even if it makes other people uncomfortable. Because at the end of the day, I have to know myself, know my mental health, know my limits, and I have to protect those for myself and my kids. Like that is so important to me now. And I never used to do that. I used to just hold things in thinking that I was keeping the peace, but really I was like poisoning myself. I was becoming so angry and I didn't know why. And I'm sure now that it was because I was holding things in. I was trying to repress things. I was trying to stuff it down. And eventually it's got to come to surface. It's got to come to light. And it was coming to light in the ugliest ways. I was like, lashing out at home with my husband. I was just so angry, and I felt like a victim in so many aspects of my life, because I felt like all these things have happened to me. Oh, this bad thing has happened. Woe is me. This story that we can tell ourselves. And so to be removed from it, to be distant from it, and to have a new environment so that you can gain a different perspective on the same things that you were dealing with, but just looking at them from a higher perspective, looking at them from stepping into a healed and higher version of you, I think it just makes all the difference to your mental health, because you can start to see patterns in your own behavior. You can start to address and acknowledge those and heal from those and do better. And you can start to decide to change your course and to chart a new direction for yourself and your family, which has been, it's been a relief. It's been a huge relief to be able to share my voice because I didn't share my opinions. I was so afraid of judgment from other people and what other people would think, and condemnation and people making fun of me and rejection, all of these kind of core childhood wounds. And thankfully, because we moved, because I was able to give proper space and time to heal and to look at those things, I feel like I look at everything that's happened in a different light. And I feel I can see the meaning behind it, the lessons behind it. I can take the lessons into whatever is next for us and whatever our new chapter is. So I think that's one of the biggest blessings. And just, it's a gift. It's literally a gift to be able to choose yourself, in the sense of I choose myself, I choose my husband, I choose my family, I choose us, but I choose that I prioritize our peace, and I am okay with not being liked. I'm okay if I'm not for everybody, but I have to be true to myself, and I have to share my voice. I have to share my message, my story, all of it. Anyways, rambling. Okay, so last question that I'm going to talk about here in this video is, how did having more margin, like time, money, and energy, change my nervous system? And so this is a fun question, because the reality is I felt my nervous system returning to its old state last year. And it was because we had so many things happening. It felt like I started to panic. I started to get really scared that I was gonna recreate my old situation in my new life, in this new environment. We had just lots of things going back back in Bermuda. We had lots of things happening. Had like fights, we had arguments, we had disagreements, we had and there's no resolution to some of these things, even on an ongoing basis. But what I realize now is that my nervous system started to heal once I stopped panicking. I have to constantly remind myself I am safe, I am well, I am not that same version of myself, I am not that old version of me. And also to remind myself that I trust myself. I trust that even if we have similar hardships that come into our lives in this new chapter, in this environment, I trust myself that I have now gained the lessons and gained the knowledge and can deal with it in a different way. And so that's literally what I've been working on. And once I actually reminded myself that, another thing that I did was surrender. I realized that not everything is in my control, and I believe in God, I believe in a higher power. And so just making a concerted effort to get closer to God, I would say this year and the last couple of weeks, the last couple of months has helped my nervous system to heal. So like I said, I felt like I was healing, and then last year I took a little dip, and then now I feel like I'm back on a good footing because I've remembered what I was learning, and I didn't allow myself or my brain to go back to those old patterns, those old way of thinking, that old fear-based way of reacting to things. And so that's where I am right now. I definitely feel like I am continuing to change, continuing to learn, and I definitely credit it to my faith and my new environment. And I'm so grateful that we had this opportunity to look at our health, to look at our choices and our habits and be intentional about figuring out ways to be more healthy going forward. I think it's so important because life is so short. I lost my dad when I was 25 years old, and so I just try to always remind myself that this life is so precious and short, and that we all have a limited numbers of days, and it is so important that we are intentional with what we want our life to look like, because we only have one life, right? So if you learned anything from this episode, if you are also thinking about a relocation or a move overseas and are trying to be intentional about starting the right way, then let me know in the comments where it is that you want to go and what it is that you hope to get out of the move internationally. I'd love to hear, and I'd love to share my thoughts and say hi. So thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in another episode.